Effectiveness of propaganda. It is impossible, in my view, to establish precise measurements of the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of propaganda. In honesty, one can judge it only in conjunction with very broad facts and very general ideas. I shall give here some criteria of judgment, often very banal and simplistic, which permit the conclusion that propaganda is indeed effective. First, some very general reasons deserve to be considered. The first is that today all politicians and all big businessmen agree that psychological action, propaganda, advertising, human relations, and public relations are indispensable and definitely produce results. Could one say that these men obey a new fashion, are victims of an illusion, or have not really thought about it? In view of the deliberate attempt on the part of some socio-psychologists to demonstrate that political men err when they believe in the effectiveness of propaganda, one might ask who is the real victim of illusions here? If we think of men motivated entirely by the desire for efficiency, like Lenin, or of a businessman entirely motivated by the desire for higher profits, it would be hard to admit that such people, who are very realistic, allow themselves to be taken in by illusions in this domain. A second argument on the same order is the following. All those who have lived in a strongly propagandized environment and have been subjected to the effects of propaganda while trying to remain unaffected, all those who have seen propaganda in massive action are agreed that propaganda is effective. Those who deny it live in countries that are still liberal and not subjected to intense propaganda. Today, hardly any Germans, Russians, or Algerians question the effectiveness of propaganda. Only those who see it from afar, who are not directly subjected to it, who do not witness opinion changes caused by propaganda, who confound the brushfire of the McCarthy with the propaganda of Goebbels, express doubts. Moreover, and this is a characteristic, they do it in the same degree that they fail to see the true propaganda practiced on them. This explains why many American socio-psychologists deny the effectiveness of propaganda, but admit that of public relations and human relations, for these are perfect. This explains why many American socio-psychologists deny the effectiveness of propaganda, but admit that of public relations and human relations, for these are precisely the form propaganda takes in the United States. There, it is the only truly developed, systemized, and long-lasting form of propaganda. We must now turn to some very general and broad facts that are open to various interpretations. First, how can the following developments be explained without an admission that opinion and behavior changes took place as a result of the use of mass media? 1. The attainment of consciousness on the part of the labor class between 1848 and 1917. Marx is perfectly right when he says that the actual condition of the proletariat is nothing unless the proletariat is aware of that condition, that such awareness is simultaneously the creator of the labor class and the revolutionary will, and that it cannot occur spontaneously or individually. It is the fruit of what the workers are told by certain intellectuals, the result of an education, in reality of a propaganda. Propaganda sometimes uncertain and searching for a way, but effective in the long run, has led the working class to where it is now, and has done so by closely mixing action, education, mass meetings, and propaganda in the strict sense of the term, according to the formula that I have indicated as typical for propaganda in the broad sense. The spread of the socialist mentality in France between 1900 and 1950. Oh, wait. Okay. 2. So what do we do? Okay, so this is arguments for the effectiveness of propaganda. Okay, 2. The spread of the socialist mentality in France between 1900 and 1950. How did this famous shift to the left come about? Why did the number of socialists and latter communist votes increase constantly? Why were the socialist reforms of the state and the economy effected without revolution? Who would question today the nationalization of certain enterprises, Social Security, paid vacations, and so on? A distinction must be made between those who vote socialists and those whose number is far greater, who are so imbued with socialism that they no longer even recognize as socialist. Okay, wait. Okay. A distinction must be made between those who vote socialist and those whose number is far greater, who are so imbued with socialism that they no longer even recognize as socialist what we considered to be purely socialist demands 50 years ago. Here again, we see slow penetration by propaganda. Oh, so we're not even aware of what socialism is. And like Marx was saying, if you're not aware of your condition, then you won't rebel against it or something. 3. The revolutions of 1917 and 1933 are the results of propaganda, in the very words of those who made them. Lenin and Trotsky, Hitler and Goebbels said time and again that the success of their revolutions was the result of propaganda, which made the masses become adherents of a minority. 4. The spread of communism and the communization. The spread of communism and the communization of the populations in the people's democracies in China are also the result of propaganda. These populations are progressively transformed into communists by enlisting them in a psychological mass movement, by systematic education, and by involving them in certain actions designed for psychological ends. The problem of truth or of doctrinal persuasion is of no importance in the process. 5. The explosions of nationalism in the Cameroons, Algeria, Indochina, and so on cannot be explained except as results of propaganda. Their people were without historical or racial coherence, a common state, or a national existence. On the other hand, nationalism was a specific phenomena of the Europe of the 19th century. Is it supposed to be of the Europeans of the 19th century? Contrary to the thesis that nationalism is a necessary historic stage between feudalism and socialism, a purely Marxist assertion not borne out by history. In reality, the colonial peoples saw in nationalism the image, the grandeur, the effectiveness of their victors, and adopted its form and passion to become victors in their turn, which is completely normal. But this reasoning on the part of some intellectuals had no reality, no force, no efficacy until the nationalist passion inflamed hearts, until there was the systematic creation of a national exaltation with regard to a nation that did not exist. This was done through propaganda. I could cite other instances. In all, these facts are infinitely greater importance in judging the effectiveness of propaganda than any analysis of a voting pattern or of the effects of a pamphlet. To be sure, for all these examples, documentation is needed. For some of them, such documentation exists. In connection with others, research is being done. I cannot trace every element here, but I will say that my assertions are not gratuitous or lightly made. One qualification is essential to prevent misunderstanding. I do not mean to say that these developments were the result of one propaganda only, or even less of propaganda in the narrow sense of psychological manipulation of symbols. Of course, the revolution of 1917 or the emergence of the Algerian nationalism was a confluence of many factors. There were pre-existing conditions, an evolution of events, a spontaneous evolution of opinions, the growth of some organizations and the decline of others, economic phenomena, and so on. But these facts by themselves are incapable of producing such massive movements as the labor movement or the Nazi Revolution. What is decisive is the propaganda factor, which sets these developments into motion, coordinates them, makes people conscious of them. Obviously, propaganda does not exist by itself, but without it, nothing would happen. It really starts the engine, and once the movement is underway, propaganda keeps it going, directs it, and ensures its success. From a different point of view, one can also see the importance of this fact if one realizes that no enterprise now is possible anywhere without psychological preparation, conditioning, persuasion, and so on. Every event in our society supposes the allegiance or approval of all, and such participation in mind or action can be obtained only by propaganda. The fact that it is utilized in so many different fields shows that our society is in the process of becoming a total society, a society in which no single act can be a matter of indifference. Every act and feeling assumes a political character. No act is purely personal. Not to participate in Hitler's Winterhilfe, winter collection for the poor, not to participate in the national enthusiasm in some new African state, not to take an interest in the problem of a school system in France in 1959, is no longer an individual act, but a breaking of ties with community. And the community cannot function today unless its citizens are sufficiently integrated so that every reform, no matter what kind, is carried out by all and assumes a political character. From there on, propaganda is necessary. At the same time, one must assert that the mechanism works this way and generally achieves its aim because propaganda is effective. Is it necessary to remind the reader here of the phenomenon of advertising? Hey, what's up, Jill? I have said that one cannot draw general conclusions from its workings, but it seems impossible nowadays to deny that it is effective in its own sphere. I need not reiterate the examples found in all the books about cigars smoked by gangsters in films, or about cigarette manufacturers who thought they had conquered the market, stopped advertising, and soon lost their sales. But I must give at least 3 indications. Even the careful reader, alert to exaggerations, must take seriously facts and examples given by Vance Packard, which testify to the public's enormous sensitivity to advertising. Second, every month new products appear for which there is no prior need, but which take their place in the market without much resistance. That is exclusively the result of propaganda. New needs are created from the day a new product appears. After a few months of getting used to a product, its absence will be felt because an effective need will have been created. But the need was created exclusively by advertising. If the product were presented without advertising, nobody would buy it. Third, the reappearance and rapid spread of advertising in the USSR after the communists had considered advertising to be a capitalist phenomenon, a non-productive expenditure, and so on, and after having abolished it as useless in a socialist country, they have brought it back during the past 10 years. It goes hand in hand with belief in production. We may be certain that when production will have increased further and produced new and more refined products, advertising will show an upsurge similar to that in the United States. Does this not show that advertising is really effective? Let us now examine another field in which propaganda is effective, in private life, and in matters that seem entirely outside its field, but nevertheless show the individual's extraordinary sensitivity to propaganda. Can it be said that propaganda affects an individual taken separately? If we accept Stotzel's division between the rather superficial public opinions of an individual and the profound attitudes that remain with him, we might conclude that propaganda works on the former and not the latter. This is the general prevailing and reassuring view. The individual would be reached by propaganda only to the extent that he participates in public opinion, or to the extent that he is massified. And then only in the upper levels of his individual psychology, and only collectively at that. In this way, psychological effects would not transcend the effects of public opinion and would have no effect on the core of personality. Seeking mass effects, propaganda would determine only collective behavior that would show why propaganda has so little effect on private conduct. Typical examples are propaganda against alcoholism or for a higher birth rate. Such propaganda, it is said, does not work because it deals with private matters. The stereotypes of health or national power, publicly accepted by everybody, should lead inevitably to respect for temperance and for large families. But they have not reduced alcoholism or increased the size of families. Ergo, propaganda, even if it succeeds in sparking specific collective actions, is incapable of affecting personality. This is a facile analysis, but it does not seem to correspond to facts. First of all, it is not correct to say that in France the respect for temperance in large families in general, among the working class and the bourgeoisie, the general judgment that a large family is madness and gentle intoxication agreeable is at least strong as that respect. What might be called the mentality of the canard and chien is surely that of the majority in this connection, and the stereotype of the bon vivant who enjoys his wine, plays around, and is not concerned with having children is certainly more powerful than the stereotype of the water-drinking family man. But the anti-alcoholic propaganda posters in the Paris subways are slowly beginning to reach the individual. There are no actual figures as yet, but the protests by producers of wine and alcohol addressed to the French Parliament are a significant indication. To cause such excitement, effects on liquor consumption must have been felt. The same is true for propaganda in favor of a higher birth rate. One can no longer doubt that propaganda has had profound effect on births. What really is curious is that there has been a considerable increase in births without a similar change in surface public opinion in favor of large families. It seems hardly debatable today that in Nazi Germany, in fascist Italy, and in France, since 1941, the increase in births resulted from propaganda. The baby boomers, huh? In the same way that propaganda can work for a higher birth rate, dude, they propagandized us to have a higher birth rate, and then they called them baby boomers? That's insane. In the same way that propaganda can work for a higher birth rate, it can, contrary to what I myself believed until recently, also work for a lower one. The surprising experience in Japan is significant. It is well known that a country begins spontaneously to produce more children after defeat. Japan, already very prolific before, was no exception to this rule. Beginning in 1945, its birth rate increased rapidly, but it was quickly realized that this would lead to disaster. As a result, propaganda for a lower birth rate was launched in 1945. To be sure, in accord with what I have said many times, the campaign did not have an immediate effect, but propaganda conducted solidly for 4 years managed to show results in 1950. From 34.3 per thousand in 1947, the rate dropped to 29 in 1950, to 20 in 1954, and to 17.2 in 1957. It's like half, cut in half. A decline of 50% in 10 years, which had never been seen before. Japan now has one of the world's lowest birth rates. A striking aspect of this development is that birth control spreads faster in rural areas than in the cities. A final example, since 1950 at least, there have been concern in France that there was too many students in the arts and in law, too few in science and in technology. But there was no change until it was decided that a propaganda action should be undertaken with the parents to direct their children toward the deficient areas. From that moment on, a change took place. Even though the propaganda was not particularly coherent, insistent, or continuous, the propaganda launched in 1952 began to take hold in 1956. From 1956 until 59, a shift of 25% of students in the desired direction took place. It follows that even in his personal conduct, the individual is very sensitive to propaganda in some domains. I think this leads to the conclusion that the same is true of political behavior. Okay, thanks, Alta. Jesus Christ. Why are people mad that I read a book by a French guy? I don't understand. I literally do not understand. Okay. I should just let Smokey Saint think for me? Just do whatever he says. Is that what I should do? I don't get it. Or do whatever you say. In fact, where the purchase of a product is concerned, the individual can rely on personal experience as to his needs, the value of the product, and so on. He can make comparisons before shopping. All this is on the level of his direct experience, a simple process. But behavior has been effectively changed on this level. For example, a 32% increase in the consumption of slaughtered beef after a well-conducted campaign has been recorded. Similar success has been achieved in connection with fruit juices and cod liver oil. Now, if he can be influenced in this domain, though only up to a point, he will not again buy products that turn out to be inferior. He can be influenced all the more on the level of economics or politics, outside his range of personal experience, never simple, and always hard to compare. Similarly, where his private conduct is concerned, to have children or not, or what to make them study, the individual generally knows what he wants and obeys motivations that are truly personal and concern him closely. So if he can be influenced even there, will he not be susceptible to being influenced on much more remote and exciting questions that concern him less directly? Finally, to demonstrate further the extreme susceptibility of the individual, we must look at rumors and fashion, two closely linked phenomena. Every rumor that circulates has a certain effect. It is an amazing fact that rumors whose origins are not known have a small audience in the beginning, a large audience after some time. Oh, you mean like how everyone on the fucking internet thinks I'm a porn bomber even though I never fucking did it? The farther away the source and the greater the number of individuals who have passed it on, the more objective fact loses importance and the more rumor believed by the multiples will adhere to it. Yeah. Objective facts. They go, oh, all we care about is objective facts, but PMARS is a porn bomber. But if you make a claim, you have to support it with evidence, unless the claim is PMARS is a porn bomber, because there's absolutely no evidence for that, yet everyone believes that fucking rumor, so never mind the objective facts. Everyone believes the rumor, so it is true. What the fuck? Because he claims Jesus is propaganda, and I think for myself, why bring Smokey into it? I don't spot nonsense conspiracies like you do. What are you talking about? Who said Jesus was propaganda? No one even said that. What is wrong with you, Alta? Fucking mental. Why do you even care? No one watches my stream. Why do you even care what the fuck I say? No one likes me. Everyone hates me. You won. Nobody likes me. Everybody hates me. I guess I'll eat some worms. An individual does not remain unaffected by a rumor that is spontaneously circulated in his milieu by a growing number of persons. Obviously, he pays no attention to it unless he is already personally interested. In fact, no rumor can circulate if the individual is not concerned. Oh, in fact, no rumor can circulate if the individual is not concerned. So why are they all concerned that I'm a porn bomber? Weirdos. He may be concerned or feel he is simply on the basis of the judgment, or what he thinks is the judgment of his milieu. This is where we find fashion, but it may be objected that the decisive element is a commercial mechanism. A fashion is launched by the producers, and advertising plays the biggest role, in the form of an organized rumor launched by propagandists. This is true in the majority of cases, even in the case of such absurd fashions as the yo-yo, the hula hoop, or Davy Crockett. But it is not always that way. Sometimes an absurd fashion spreads without advertising, from only one point of departure, such as in the astonishing case of the Scooby-Doo, beginning with an article in the children's magazine, and without any commercial interest being involved. France was submerged within a month by Scooby-Doos made by children and adults. I don't even know what the Squibidoos? I don't know what the fuck that is. Evidently, we are face to face with phenomena of imitation, pure and simple, monkey see, monkey do. But to the extent that this imitation is caused by an article that reaches only a limited number of children, it is an example of the individual's extreme susceptibility, his capacity to be influenced and propagandized. Even if he defies it, even if he stiffens in the presence of true propaganda, he is still extremely vulnerable. These reflections and statements, selected arbitrarily from various fields and based on different methods, lead us to conclude that the effectiveness of propaganda is indeed great and decisive. And with that, we will end there. I think the next time we read, we're going to finish this motherfucker. Yeah. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to finish this book, finally. Fuck. It's taking me forever to read because I keep getting migraines, and then I can't read for like a week because I feel nauseous. You dug your own grave, P. Mars. Eventually, you'll be left with the flat earthers and lizard people. People do like you when you're being rational, but your troll side lets you down. What are you fucking talking? Are you... Bro. You don't believe in conspiracies? You think Osama bin Laden did 9/11? You think fucking Harvey... What is his name? Or Lee Harvey Oswald? Is it Harvey Lee Oswald? It's Lee Harvey, right? You think Lee Harvey Oswald killed JFK? Oh, BB. The fucking... There's no fucking conspiracy. They admit the shit. Like, Rockefeller. Memoirs. How do you spell memoirs? See, look. This is in David Rockefeller's fucking book. Memoirs. Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists, and of conspiring with others around the world to build an integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it. What the fuck? He admitted it. But the rational people tell me that it's a conspiracy. Fuck rationality. These rational people aren't rational at all. They just think they're rational because propaganda told you were rational. Not everything is a conspiracy. I went off topic. Mm-hmm. There's secret society, like, dude, we're fucking indoctrinated and brainwashed and lied to. Everything people believe is bullshit. No one knows what the fuck is going on because there's so much like bullshit everywhere. Who the fuck knows? Like, of course, like, the world we live in is like 1984. It's Brave New World. So I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any friends, dude. I don't care. People, I don't really like people. My dad used to sing this shit.
There is a tremendous amount of songs about eating. It's a favorite topic of kids' songs, and really just singing them makes me hungry, as long as they're not eels. And but you know the peanut butter sandwich song, and there's eels, and there's fish bones, and all sorts of yummy things that the kids just love to get their fingers into and stick into their mouths. So, oh, this is a song. Oh, there's another. Yeah, this is another really juicy tidbit that I'm sure most of you have tried at some point during your life. I know I have. By mistake. Nobody likes me, everybody hates me. I think I'll go eat worms. Great big juicy ones, eeny weeny squeeny ones. See how they wiggle and squirm. Cut off their heads and suck out their juice and throw all their skins away. Nobody knows how I survive on worms 3 times a day. Nobody Nobody likes me, everybody hates me. I think I'll go eat worms. Great big juicy ones, eeny weeny squeeny ones. See how they wiggle and squirm. Bite off their heads and suck out their juice and throw all their skins away. And nobody knows how I survive on worms 3 times a day. You must have supper with us sometime. Really, it's an experience and a half.
I know we can. Yeah. Yeah. I know we can. Yeah. Yeah. I know we can. Jesse Lee. JLP. Big Bump.
Uniting the races with truth instead of lies, dividing the masses by who? Children of the lie, rebuilding the family by rebuilding the men. Back when boys used to be boys and men used to be men. Gotta live the right way, that's God's way, but you're still stuck in a fallen state. Anger, resentment, judgment, hate, that's what's wrong with the world today. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but principalities run amok against principalities holding us, principalities controlling us. So you get something went wrong, but face the truth about yourself and just seek first God's kingdom, cause
live the life that we all desire, serve the God that we all admire, stand up and be true. I know we can be perfect just like you. I know we can find a way to man up and stand up for what's right if we give our plans up. I know we can have faith in the unseen while we stand up and get back to the way we were designed to be. I know we can find a way. I know we can find a way. I know we can find a way.
You must know that so you can. Something went wrong, but
check. I had to get on the track one time. Joel Friday here. Check. Look, stand up. We got fighting to do. We gotta show them who boss. He put a Viking in you. He put that lightning in you. Igniting the truth. But you beg and blame and lie and hate and never wanna stand for the truth. So what you planning to do? You understand and lose. You better go talk to your mama, better stop at the drama, better drop all the trauma. Boy, you better stand up and up. Put your hand up and hut. Cause if you don't, then we lose, and then we gotta hear the fake news. Whoa.